Okay, so it's all about Ellen G. White, and so maybe a lot of you wondered, who's Ellen White, and some of you maybe have done this award already, sorry, this honor already. Others may not, because maybe somebody, somebody is a bit scared of Ellen White. I've heard a lot of the children, said, "Ooh, she's a very scary lady," and I'm not, and I don't want to learn about her. She looks very scary, And some people say, she looks like a grumpy old granny, in some of the pictures that people shared. Oh no, I don't want to know her. Some people, say maybe it is the church's prophetess. Some people have actually said, "Oh, she's a sad Adventist," I don't know how many of it have, but how many know that when they said that. But others have also said, maybe she's a kind Pathfinder leader, and the more I read about Ellen White, and I read her stories, I actually find out that yes, she was actually a very kind lady, a very kind Pathfinder leader. She was actually a very kind lady, and she was one of the founders of our church, the Adventist Church. So today we're going to share a little bit about who Ellen White was, the time, share a little bit about the time she lived, and also share a little bit about her contribution to our church. Now, this is a very valuable award because it talks, a little bit about our history as a church, and it's very exciting if you can go into that history to find out, how our church has started and how difficult circumstances our church has started, and what brought our church to what it is today. And so there's a lot of interesting history and interesting, situations in which the people lived, in Ellen White specifically, and how she grew up. And so we're going to share a little bit. So what are the requirements? The requirements, basically say demonstrate a knowledge of those things, basic facts of Ellen White, historical settings, biblical idea of inspiration, biblical tests of a prophet, the range and types of books Ellen White wrote, and Ellen White as a prophet in the Adventist Church. So, and the second one is, what you can do is, we're going to share a little bit about a game. And some of you maybe like playing games, and there's an exciting game online on an app also that you can play, and we're going to show you a little bit later how you can access and how you can actually play that game. But for today's purposes, just because we are, Sabbath afternoon, and you want to, maybe as a Pathfinder, you want to go and try those hand shadow shapes, go practice it maybe in your room, or you want to go and learn about your, feed your pet or cuddle your pet. So we are not going to deal with, some dreary history lesson. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do with 3 ones that highlighted there. Basic facts about Ellen White, and try and make it exciting as possible. Some basic historical settings of Ellen White's world in terms of what was the world like when Ellen White, started, and then looking at a little bit about, what contributions, Ellen White made in the church. And so maybe you can go away and actually say, Ellen White, she was a good lady, and because of her and because of what she did, what the vision she had, we thank God for, sorry, we thank God for what she could have done, she did for our church. Is that okay? So, who was Ellen White? All right? Who was Ellen White? Ellen White um, was White, a twin sister. Okay, she was born as Ellen Gould Harmon on the 26th of November, 1827 in the United States of America. Now, I like this part of Ellen White because, you know, her surname, Harmon, sounds like Herman, you know. So it's I just take the A out and put the E there, and take the O out and put the A there, and you know, and it's Herman. And the second thing I like about this is that my birthday is on the 24th of November, not in 1827, so I'm not that old, but on the 24th of November, it's my birthday. So, you know, my name is close to Herman, and she's close to my birthday. It would have been nice if I lived, you know, in Ellen White's time, and maybe we would have celebrated our birthdays together, you know. And that'd be really, really great. I wonder whether Ellen White was a good cook, you know, and whether she made really, really good cake. I'm sure she did. And yeah, we would have shared a lovely birthday together. Ellen White had a twin sister. Now, many people do not know that, or maybe they realize that, because, you know, there's not a lot of, you know, stories that her twin sister wrote, or books that her twin sister wrote. But she writes about her twin sister, you know. It's called Elizabeth. And, you know, she had a twin sister called Elizabeth. And if you look at the picture there, they look very similar, don't they? But she loved, Ellen really, really loved her twin sister. And, you know, her twin sister, I think at the time didn't go to church. And she always wrote about the sister, praying for her to bring her, you know, back to church. Now, here we need to, you know, take out your worksheets, maybe, if you can, but you can do it later as well. But here's some just to some questions just to test you and fill in the blanks. Now, Ellen White, when she was just 9 years old, she suffered she suffered a bad injury which left her being challenged to go to school and have further education. Now, can anybody guess what injury Ellen White suffered? Anybody want to guess? When she was 9 years old, what injury she suffered?
All right, we heard Pastor Clifford. Pastor Clifford, you need to speak up a little bit. We're struggling
Okay.
sometimes to hear.
Sorry.
So you heard Pastor Clifford. What injury did Ellen
What do you want to guess?
in her childhood days? All right, question is there for all of you there. She was hit by a stone once, somebody says.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, well done. She was hit with a stone, very bad. You know, she was walking on her way from school with her friends, you know, and one child, you know, was very naughty, you know, and he turned back, you know, and he threw a stone at her and hit her right here, you know, in her face, which left her, you know, with a bad injury, and he challenged her to go to school. So the point is, guys, one thing that I learned when I was a kid, you know, never mess with stones, or don't throw rocks, you know, even stones, you know, because you can always, it's an opportunity of hurting, you know, of hurting somebody. In fact, also, you know, Jesus says Jesus always says, you know, that we need to be kind to each other, you know, and that stone, which I'm sure that boy may have meant it or may not have meant it, you know, left her with a really, really, really bad injury, which, you know, which was there through her life, you know, until she died eventually, you know, an old life. But that illness, that injury affected her for a very, very long time. Now, next question: which age was Ellen White baptized?
All right. Okay. People are not so familiar with Ellen White, which is
okay.
Obvious.
That's just a question.
It's obvious in the comments, but How old she was when she got baptized? Somebody says probably 15. I give
Okay.
16, somebody says.
Okay.
Somebody says she was baptized with 35.
All right. Okay. Okay.
What is it,
That's
Pastor?
good. Good guesses. Good guesses. But actually, you know, I did put this in deliberately there, you know, because Ellen White was baptized when she was 12 years old, you know. And I put that there because a lot of children may think, oh, I'm too young to follow Jesus, you know. I'm too young to be baptized, you know. I want to be, you know, I should be 16 or even 17, or some say even 25, but not. But that is not correct, you know. You can be baptized, you know. My son was baptized when he was 11, you know, and he's a really good son, and he loves the Lord, you know. He's 20 years old now, and he still loves Jesus, you know. And so you can be baptized when you are 12 as well. And Ellen White was baptized at the age of 12. And so if you're 12 years old, you're 11 years old, you know, you can choose to follow Jesus right now in your life, you know. And you can talk to your pastor, or you can talk to your Pathfinder leader, you know, and says, I want to be baptized because I love Jesus, you know. And you can. And your Pathfinder leader or your pastor will be happy, you know, to help you and become baptized. All right. Ellen was 16 when she experienced something also sad. Anybody guess what she may have experienced when she was 16? Anybody? Guess? I can't see the chats, Pastor Dan, because I've got my screen sharing.
Yes. Pastor Clifford, repeat again the question for everybody.
Yeah, sorry. When Ellen White was 16, it's on the screen. What did she experience? She experienced something really sad in her life.
Can we get some answers?
Anybody guess?
Somebody says she experienced her first vision.
Okay, nearly. That was a good experience.
That's what Pastor Clifford says. Nearly. That means you made a mistake, but it's a good
That's
guess.
all right. Good guess.
Somebody died. Somebody says.
Okay, not really. Let me say.
Okay, you tell
she
her.
received she experienced the great disappointment. Now, what is a great disappointment? Now, disappointment means that if you're hoping and you're wishing for something to happen, right, and then somebody disappoints you, you know, you're wishing for to go somewhere, and then somebody says, we're not going anymore, you know. That's what the great disappointment is. So let me tell you a little bit what the great disappointment was, so you can understand what it means. In 1844, you know, there was this, before 1844, great disappointment happened in 1844. Before that, there was this gentleman called William Miller, right? William Miller, you know, he loved Jesus, and he loved to study, you know, his Bible. And he discovered, you know, he studied the book of Daniel, you know, and he discovered something very interesting there. And in that interesting, in Daniel chapter 8 and Daniel chapter 9, he discovered something, a clause that says, unto 2,300 days, then the sanctuary will be cleansed. And William Miller understood this to be the time when Jesus will come. And so he started studying, and he got excited about it, you know, and he got lots of people together, and he started preaching about this. He says, look, listen, this means Jesus is going to come. And he put the date there of 22 October 1844. And you can imagine my people are excited. Wow, they've worked out the date. Jesus is going to come 22 October 1844. Well, people started getting together, you know. William Miller first talked about 1843, but then he put it together 1844, you know, and so the newspapers started printing this, you know, and they gave out leaflets of all that Jesus is coming 22 October 1844. And you can imagine that night, you know, that day, people standing there. There's lots of people that sold their houses, not even sold it, they gave it away, you know. People gave away their farms, people waited, they had a car, you know, or a bicycle, they would just give it away and say, look, no, I don't need that because Jesus is coming, you know, and I'm just going to be ready when Jesus comes. Well, William Miller um, was correct with the date, but William Miller was not correct with the event. He thought the sanctuary being cleansed meant that the earth is the sanctuary, and to cleanse it means that Jesus is going to come take everybody to heaven and, cleanse the earth, recreate the earth, and that means cleansing it, and that's going to be the time. But, it didn't happen, and lots of people were sad, and that's what he called the great disappointment. And so Ellen White was there. She was part of that. She was just 16 years old. She knew, she thought, wow, this is the happiest day of my life. And it was sad. And that's why we call it the great disappointment. That's sad. And just to put this in, God says, Jesus says, we must never put a date to his coming, because in the Bible it says not even Jesus knows when he's coming, right? And only God knows. His Father knows. His Father will tell him when it is time to come. But we know that it's nearly time. We believe that it's nearly time that he's going to come because of what's happening everywhere. And Matthew 24 has some good signs, to show us that it's close to the time when Jesus comes. But we must never put a date to it. And that's what William Miller mistake he made, and everybody was disappointed. But the disappointment didn't stay there, because what happened is that a few people, got together and they said, listen, something, William Miller might not be truly wrong. Maybe the date is correct. Maybe he's just wrong in terms of what actually happened. And so people like Ellen White, a guy called Crozier and others, got together. They started studying, and they discovered that actually what happened was that Jesus didn't come, but Jesus actually started doing something amazing in heaven to prepare people for his second coming. When Jesus started, he went, they called him to the holy place in order to help people get ready for heaven. So Jesus is currently there in the most holy place of the temple, helping each one of us. And Hebrews says that we can come to Jesus and ask him to help us be ready for him. And so Ellen White was part of that group again, and they started studying. And 17 years old, so that person who said 16, that Ellen White had a vision, was nearly right. And just one more later, Ellen White received a vision for that fledgling group. And she says, this is what she wrote. While we were praying, the power of God came upon me as I had never felt before. And guess what? She saw this great vision, right? This great vision meant, she saw it. She said she saw God's people. You and me, God's people, we want to follow Jesus, saw God's people walking on this path, and some people were falling off, saying, we don't want to follow Jesus anymore. And some people kept going until the time Jesus came. And so she saw this vision and she knew, this is what Jesus is saying. We've had a disappointment, but Jesus is actually saying, don't give up. Keep going. There's other people who are going to give up, but don't give up. Keep going. And she told this to a friend and said, friends, you know what God showed me actually said, listen, we may have been disappointed, but God says, don't give up. Let's keep going. Let's keep studying. Let's keep doing great work. Let's keep telling other people, because Jesus will come, but let's not give up. And I think that was a great vision, The first, a great vision. It's sometimes, what we need, and especially during this time, with COVID-19, lots of people want to give up, and they say, oh, no, things are too hard. Or people say, what's going to happen to this world? Oh, my mom is losing a job, and, you know, and some people are going to get sick, you know, and going to give up. But this vision, I'm glad Ellen White had this vision, you know, because that vision meant for us as well to say, listen, do not give up. People may give up, but don't give up. Keep going. Keep worshiping God. Keep loving Him. Keep serving Him, because Jesus is going to help us through this situation, and very soon He will come. And so that's my good message for you. And so this is part of what Ellen White's contribution she had for us as a church, and basically that's the start. When, you know, that's the start of that church back then, you know, in terms of don't give up. And I'm glad that those followers, you know, didn't give up, you know, because they kept going, and thank God they did, because we have a big, great church, you know, across the whole world that can share God's message of Jesus, you know, coming soon to the rest of the world. Ellen White, it says, had over 2,000 visions over her lifetime, you know, 2,000 visions, you know, and then Ellen White visions occurred in front of people and in private, you know, and this is what Ellen White did, or Ellen Herman at that time did for us. But her story goes on, you know. She didn't stay a young woman, you know. Eventually, she found a young man called James White, and they got married. When do you think Ellen White got married? Anybody want to guess, perhaps? A date? And I mentioned his name. What was his name? And I just want to see if everybody paid attention. What was Ellen White's husband's name? Anybody want to guess?
Somebody said 1846, and his name was James White.
Very good. Ellen Herman married James White in 1846. Good answer. 1846, just 2 years after the disappointment, you know. And marriage is good. People getting married, finding someone that they love is good, you know, helps with that disappointment, not so bad anymore. All right, but it's because of that vision that she had kept going. And so Ellen White and James White had married. Now, how many children do you think Ellen and James White had? Anybody want to guess? This is a guessing game, right? But we share you information. What do you think? Ellen, Jane, how many children did Ellen and James have? Any guessing?
The question is there for everybody. Let's try. Somebody says 4 boys,
4
5
boys.
kids.
5 kids. Yes. Okay. Ellen White had 4 boys. Yes, 4 boys. Anybody want to guess their names? See if you can guess the names.
I think that might take a long time. Supposed to just give us.
Okay. Their names. Okay, here we go. Good names. First name was Henry. Sadly, Henry died when he was 16 of pneumonia. And then she had Edson, and she had Willie. And the saddest bit of her life is she had another son called John Herbert, and he died only 12 weeks. It was very, very sad. You know, just 12 weeks, baby. You know, he died. So there's picture Henry, there's picture Edson, and there's the picture of Willie. All right, 4 boys. And there's the tombstone of John Herbert. You know, he died 1860, just 12 weeks and 1 day. That was really, really sad. Eventually, James White also died, you know, in 1881, just 60 years old. Her husband died. So all kinds of sad experiences in Ellen White's life, you know. But what I like about Ellen White, you know, she didn't sit and stay sad, you know, and gloomy, even though there were difficult times in her life. You know, she got up and she did a lot of things. You know, she wrote, and she even went on missionary trips. Now, I'm sure somebody of you like to go on a missionary trip, right? And Ellen White went on a missionary trip. Does anyone want to guess again which countries did Ellen White go to on a mission trip? Any country? Anyone guess?
Serbia.
Serbia. Okay. Okay. She didn't go to Serbia, but
All right.
somewhere close to Serbia. Yeah.
Africa.
Africa. Okay. Don't think so.
Australia.
Australia. That's right. Ellen White went to Australia and she came here. She came to our country. A long time ago, she actually visited Great Britain, you know. She visited a place called Grimsby. I think she visited a place called Southampton. You know, she visited these places, but Australia was the longest she lived, you know. That was great. You know, I'm sure some of you would have loved to meet her. She had to come to England, right? And to find out, you know, this lady, how great she was and all the visions that she had to help our church. There's the pictures of what a place called Avondale College that Ellen White helped to set up in Australia. Then what Ellen White and Avondale College looks now. This was the house that she lived in when she was in Australia, Sunnyside Lodge, and that's what the building looks like now if you ever visit there. Okay, she eventually moved back to America, and this is the place that she lived in, called Elms Haven, where she continued to live until she died in 1915. Now, Elms Haven was in the news because there was a great fire happening near her home, old home in America, and you know, the fire didn't catch her house. Sadly, there were other people who lost, you know, their homes. We thank God that not a lot of people were killed, but the fire was really bad in America, and people lost their homes. Part of our school building was lost, but we're so glad, you know, that God will look after those people who lost their homes, and I'm sure God will take care of them too. So thank you that Ellen White's house didn't catch fire, and we praise God that He takes care of His people, you know, and He will look after those who lost their homes as well. So let me go through in terms of, you know, quickly, Ellen White, you know, what of the world that she lived. You know, Ellen White, remember, she was born in 1827, right? And she lived in 1915. So there was almost, you know, there's a big time in the 1800s that she lived. Now the 1800s, 1800s, you know, was called the Victorian age, right? So some of you may have are learning about the Victorians in your school. I know in year 7, I think a little bit year 8, you would have learned about the Victorians and the strange things they did. Now I'm sharing this with you because if you read some of Ellen White books, and you understand why she wrote the things she did, because the Victorians was a very interesting type of people. Hygiene was not the best, right? Now hygiene means cleanliness and being healthy. Now nowadays, you know, your mom and dad would teach you to say, look, you know, you must at least have a bath once a day, or a shower once a day, or brush your teeth, you know, or wash your face, or brush your hair. Now, back in the Victorian times, you know, health and hygiene was not the greatest. You know, people would you know, would just, you know, their rubbish, you know, they would open the top window and just poof, throw the rubbish out by the window. And if you walked alongside, you know, and all that rubbish fell on your head, you know, it would just be weird. But that's what they did, you know. Or people, you know, they had what they call a second-hand meat market. Now imagine it, a second-hand meat market. If you thought about a second-hand meat market, means that, you know, if somebody bought a whole cow, then the person would take, if he's rich enough, take the whole cow home. He would cut off, you know, whatever he wanted, and then he would send the rest of the thing to the second-hand meat market, you know, and this would be sold to the poorer people. Imagine that, right? Now, maybe that that meat that came back wasn't the most healthiest, because it went through the hands of, somebody who's already used it. And so, hygiene wasn't the best. Also, in the Victorian times, very few people had a bath, if at all. Whew, imagine the smelliness. In 1830, a census showed that some people had never had a bath in their entire life. Some people say in the Victorian age, they had a bath only for Christmas. Now imagine that. Whew, the smelliness of the Victorians, and Ellen White knew that health wasn't the best. So anesthetics were rarely used. When people had to go to the dentist. If you looked at this picture there, doesn't look good, was it? Right? So if somebody had to get a tooth out, they would get a pliers. And just the thought of that, no anesthetic, just say, listen, now grit your teeth or just hold on to something and I'm just gonna pull out your tooth. Oh, it just sounds painful to think about all of that, And it in this time that Ellen White lived, that's why Ellen White wrote in Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene. She writes, cleanse and disinfect your streets. Houses promote cleanliness and health among the poor, and see that they are plentifully supplied with good food and raiment, and employ right sanitary measures generally, and you will have no occasion to fast and pray. So Ellen White had the vision once, and she said, look, this is not right. She said, cleanliness is next to godliness. Our people must have more cleanliness, must think about their health, and think about keeping ourselves clean. Ellen White's world, the social settings, right? A lot of people traveled by steam train, ship, and horse-drawn carriages back then, right? By ship, they would travel, or they would have their horse-drawn carriages. Now, there was a time that, many of you have a bicycle, right? Some bicycles are cheap these days, but bicycles and cars back then, was it was a novelty. Bicycles just came in, and it was quite expensive, and only the rich could afford a bicycle. But some people thought, this is such a great thing, I want a bicycle. And what happened was a lot of people, they would waste their money, or they would not think of the valuable things or the important things in life, and they would spend all of them or most of their money because they think it was cool and they need to have a bicycle, or a car. And Ellen White, will show you what Ellen White, she wrote about bicycles, a little bit too. Also, people wore long dresses, and suits, and ties, and a lot of people, looked at the fashion and they said, oh no, I must have that special hat, I must have that special dress, and people spent a lot of money in doing that. So this is what Ellen White said. She wrote and said, there seemed to be a bicycle craze. Money was spent to gratify an enthusiasm in this direction that might far better have been invested in building houses of worship where they are greatly needed. Also, she talked about the common style of women's dressing. We chose to agree with others in theory and in practice, if we can do so, and at the same time be in harmony with the law of God, and with the laws of our being. And so Ellen White wrote, and she saw it, and she said, what I've seen and what God has shown me, I don't think it's very good to waste our money on things, that cost a lot, just because we want it, just because we go into the shop and we say, I want it, she was trying to tell us, look, sometimes it's good to save. Sometimes it's good to think about something before we buy it. Sometimes we must ask the question, do we really need it at that particular moment? And I know a lot of children, I've seen children, in the shops, throw tantrums, and they throw themselves on the floor, because that is what they want, and they want it now. And the parents would say, hold on, let's think about this. Do we really need it? Can we afford it even? And this is what Ellen White has instructed and helped people to understand. And I appreciate that, because when I read these things, appreciate that she said it to people back then, and it can still mean a lot for us today. Not that, those times bicycles were more expensive. Bicycles are cheap now, and bicycles are probably the cheapest thing in the market now. So it doesn't mean that we mustn't ride bicycles. It means, otherwise means that we think about what we buy and think about whether something is really important or really needed in that sense. So how did Ellen White help the Seventh Adventist Church? This is very, very valuable. And so this is one thing that Ellen White helped. Joseph Bates was this gentleman. He was one of the co-founders of our church. He was a retired ship captain, and Joseph Bates studied about the Sabbath. He wanted to know what day the Sabbath is. Is it the first day? Is it the seventh day of the week? We want to know it. And so he studied this, and he found, hey, it needs to be Sabbath. And he shared it with his friends, Alan and James White. He shared it with them, and they started studying this. And the more they studied, they discovered, yes, that is true. The Sabbath is on the seventh day, Saturday. God wants us to follow it. In 1848, and this is where Ellen White contributed to the church. Ellen White received a vision, about the Sabbath. She received a vision where she saw the Ten Commandments, and the Ten Commandments, just around the Sabbath, there was a bright light, and it highlighted that particular commandment, and as the vision went on, she just confirmed, what they've studied. And she went back to say, guys, people, God has shown me a vision, and he's confirmed that we are on the right path, and we're on the right path. The Sabbath is the seventh day. The Sabbath is, on a Saturday. We are on the right path. Thank goodness. And this is why Ellen White is so valuable to the people. And I can imagine Joseph Bates get excited and said, oh, thank God for confirming that our studies are correct. And as a result, we keep the Sabbath, because of those studies that they've had. The second thing that Ellen White contributed, Victorians smoked a lot, and lots of health hazards, people smoked a lot, people drank a lot of tea and coffee, and people were just really not thinking about their health. Remember what I said, people weren't thinking about their hygiene. In June 1863, Ellen White had a vision that pointed out the hazards of tea and coffee and smoking, and promoted health as an aid to intellectual and spiritual growth. In other words, Ellen White had a vision, and God showed her, this is not right. It doesn't help us if we're unhealthy. If we're unhealthy, it doesn't help us to think, I'm very careful. If we drink a lot of sugar, it doesn't help us, with being alert. If we smoke, our lungs are very bad, and it doesn't help us, to live a long life. And so Ellen White had the vision, and she came to share it with her friends, and she said, guys, I think God has shown us something very valuable, that the way we live is not the best way. In other words, Ellen White used to eat pork, when she was a young girl, and the vision that she realized, and she said, oh God, guys, this is not the right thing, because God has shown us that this is not the most healthiest to eat. And thank God for Ellen White. And the interesting thing is that a lot of the visions that Ellen White had and the things that she wrote about, people only discover now nowadays, you know, in the 20th century, now 21st century, people have discovered, you know, and writing about the things that she wrote back then. And, you know, as a church, we adopted this. And since then, you know, we taught the good health habits, you know, and we share it with people. And so you guys can too do that. You know, think about your bodies. Think about your health. Think about what you put in your bodies. Think about what you do, you know, and listen to what Ellen White has written, saying, look, it's very valuable to think about our bodies and think about how we can relate to God if we are healthy. Then, third thing that I'd like to talk about, and I'd like to contribute to the Seventh Adventist Church. In 1858, Ellen White had a vision, sorry, that's not supposed to be vision, advising, which he called the Great Controversy. Now, controversy means a big, you know, a battle. And what that means, what the Great Controversy means, is that, you know, there's a great battle happening between God and Satan, good and evil, you know. And she wrote this in terms of started back in heaven, and Satan was this beautiful angel, you know, and he was telling all the other angels, look, God, he's unfair. God, you know, he's not the kindest person. Let's rebel against him. And they did. And the Bible says, you know, there was a fight in heaven. Satan was then asked to leave heaven, you know, because we can't have fighting there. And since then he came down to earth and he started tempting people and he started bringing evil into the world, you know, and we are caught up in that. And every day you and I have to make a decision, which path do we follow? We've got to make a decision, do we follow the good things in life or do we follow, you know, the evil? Do we make good choices to be kind or do we make choices to be, you know, to make, you know, bad choices in life? And there's this big vision, this big fight going on, you know, and God, Satan wants our allegiance and God wants our allegiance because God is a good God, you know, and he wants the best for us. And so this book led to the church formulating our three angels message, you know, to share with people, you know, that God is fighting for us. God is struggling for us. Jesus came to die as part of the great controversy, you know, so that we can follow him. He came to save us. He gave his life, and he's coming soon to take us to be with him and live eternally with him. Right? And he says that's what the church adopted, and that is why we as a Seventh Adventist Church adopted the three angels message to share with people that Jesus is coming soon, and he wants us to be with him one day. And so God gave this vision to Ellen White, you know, to highlight to people what the Bible teaches. All right? And this is the point of Ellen White's writings. Ellen White writes, you know, she says she's a little light showing to the big light. So when people forgotten about the many things that the Bible teaches, her writings help us to go back to the Bible, point us back to the Bible. It says, guys, we forgot about the Sabbath. Guys, we forgot about Jesus coming. Guys, we may be forgotten about healthful living. Guys, we may be forgotten about this. You know, go and study this again. And this is what Ellen White, this is what God has given her, you know, and help our church so that we can go back to the Bible to learn more about him. And so in 1863, Ellen White, along with all the believers, organized and adopted the name Seventh-day Adventist Church because of all the beliefs, you know, they discovered in the Bible all these things, you know, that a lot of people have forgotten about. And she said, well, two of the things that's important for us is that the Sabbath is important, which is the seventh day, and we are Adventist. In other words, we look forward to the coming of Jesus. By the way, that's what our name means, right? We are Sabbath keepers, and we look forward to the coming of Jesus. That's why we call Seventh-day Adventist Church. And Ellen White, along with James White and Joseph Bates and all the other followers that got together, they voted, and they said, thank God that he's given us this opportunity, and let's share it with other people. And And this was part of Ellen White's legacy, that she helped the church towards finding and going back to the Bible, what other people may have forgotten. Ellen White wrote more than 80 books, 200 flyers, and 5,000 periodical articles in her lifetime. Imagine that. And this shows how God has worked in her life. Remember that accident she had that affected the education, that affected the concentration a lot. God helped her and has given her this inspiration. In the end, she wrote 80 books, 200 flyers, 5,000 periodical articles on prophecy, on relationships, on health, on leadership and education, parenting, and guidance for the church. And there's a lot of good things about Ellen White, and when I started this session here with you, don't let anybody tell you that she's this grumpy old granny, or this scary old lady. There's a book that George Knight writes, and he says, he tells stories about people who met Ellen White, and they actually found this kind, beautiful lady, that wants the best for all of us. And that's what many of our parents want. That's what our pastors want. That's what the church wants, the best for all of us. And Ellen White helps us to see that. And I'm looking forward to meeting her one day, when Jesus comes, because I love to meet her. And I want to sit on her lap. Well, maybe not, maybe I'm too big, but I want to go and sit next to her and tell me about the stories, tell me about the things that you've gone through. And thank you really for being the one who accepted God's call, to be a prophetess, to give God's messages so that people can understand and we can get back to the Bible. Now that's a little bit, about Ellen White. And in your worksheets, if you do your worksheets, a lot of things that you can actually fill in to complete it. The fun bit is the game, right? And maybe let me see if I can actually access this game. Now you can find it on the App Store or on the Android Store, or you can actually find it, online. In your worksheet, I've got the link there that you can find it. Now,